Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Uncommon Men podcast. Today, it's just myself and Nick, two of the greats. Today, we're going to dive into the sustainable success matrix, how you can have success that lasts a lifetime without feeling like you're just chasing the end of that tunnel that you never really get to, or maybe you find that success and you don't feel as fulfilled as you thought you would, or maybe in the pursuit of that success, you get burnt out along the way, you kind of lose your way, you lose your values, and you kind of get to that point of, what the hell am I doing this for? I'm missing out on time with my family, my health is turning to shit, and this is not the life that I signed up for. So we want to go through a few ways that we've found personally and that we've helped with our guys to have that sustainable success so that along the way, you don't lose yourself and you get to the top of that mountain. So, Nick, what have you found, man? Like, have you had an instance in your life where you've kind of set this goal or this summit and you've been chasing and either you kind of lost your way or you got there and it wasn't so fulfilling?
Yeah, I think, and if I go back just on my own journey, I've had a lot of summits that they weren't actually my summits. They were expectations and someone else's set of ideals and their own projected version of reality, like, oh, Nick would do well here. And at that point, in my younger years, I didn't necessarily have the understanding of values and this understanding of alignment and what that meant. And what that did result in is me having, achieved certain things, but I didn't have the fulfillment because it wasn't something that I wanted to do per se. I felt forced and it felt like the right thing to do, what the good man would do. And I've had a couple of those summits over the years, and it also got just to a point where I felt burnt out. I lacked energy, I lacked drive, I lacked motivation. I felt that there was no purpose. There wasn't this sense of fulfillment. There was a lot of frustration, and all of that wasn't just reflective within the state of my life, but relationship, business, my own health. So I think this goes a lot deeper than just the general idea of like success. It also ties into sustainability. Yeah.
Because I think it's also worth defining exactly how you measure success or what success even means to you. Like, obviously in different realms of life, that's going to be very different for a lot of people. And then also based on your values will then tie into that as well, right? So it's like, I think it's worth having a good idea for some people, like accumulating or considering all of your values collectively, what could success look like in a capacity where you're not sacrificing some of your values for others. So like, you're not sacrificing your value of health or family just to have financial success. You're not sacrificing the financial success or the business just to spend more time with your family and have better health. Like, what does that sweet spot look like so that you're measuring it for you, right? As like you said, as opposed to, well, this is what your partner thinks you should do, or this is what society or your parents or, whoever this other figure or pressure is that is trying to tell you that this is where you should be going in life and aiming for, right?
You touched on such a important point there. I think a lot of people also just don't realize that they're living out someone else's expectations. That's the part that just confaculates them. Or they're living out their trauma. That's it. So I remember I worked with a guy, a really successful gentleman, and he was struggling with stress management and struggling with a lack-based mentality, as well as a sense of fulfillment. Now, this person was in the 9-10 figure space. It wasn't a small fish by any means. And even then, he said, if I'm going to paraphrase here, he said that it felt like, there were these two wolves that were, trying to feed off him. And the one had all these expectations and this all these things that he didn't have when growing up, and he had to step into the space of being the eldest and even a provider in his household at a young age. And there was fear, there was a lack of certainty, there was a lack of safety. And as a child, to move into a space where you're having to essentially be one of the breadwinners, that's a very messy situation to be in. And then on the other side, he also then realized, like, fuck, like, you've done it. Like, you're in a space of safety. You have the success. You have an incredible family. You're holding so many lives in your hands. You've built an incredible, set of businesses, and you've created opportunities, and you create impact. And there's, you're a philanthropist, etc., etc. And in betwixt that, he struggled to invest in himself. He struggled to feel safe even in the life that he had built. He still felt that he didn't have enough money for his family and his kids if he were to pass. He didn't feel fulfilled. He didn't know what hungry ghost was still, or wolf was still trying to attack him the whole time. And one would think that when you've achieved a certain level of success, that there would be this meaning and fulfillment and satisfaction that would just arise. And what is very apparent was he struggled with his self-worth. He hadn't necessarily navigated that conversation between those two wolves yet, because he hadn't unpacked that effectively. And he really wasn't clear on his own. He had principles, but he wasn't clear on his values, and was struggling to derive meaning from all the things that he had done, other than what he's done is he has made sure that he doesn't need to survive, he can thrive, but he still had a belief around that. And I wanted to share that story with everyone here, because no matter where you are financially, there are people that are in completely different, stratospheres on a financial, from a financial standpoint, and they are struggling with the same mental and emotional constraints that you are right now.
It's such a funny conundrum, because we've all heard money won't make you happy. Having a six-pack won't make you confident. Having this thing that we've tied that happiness, that fulfillment, that success, that whatever it is to, we've heard so many stories of people saying that, yeah, I had it and it wasn't it. It didn't do it for me. But there's still that part of our brain that's let me achieve it, and then let me decide for myself, right? Let me see once I've got multi-millions of dollars in the bank account, and I'll make that decision for myself, right? And so how does that story end? How did he get to a point of finding that fulfillment, or finding that balance?
To be honest, I think maybe to a degree. I think there was that whole, it's like you said, you feel like you might have to sacrifice certain things to attain certain things, like that balance. Like work-life balance is a complete fucking myth. You every day the balance is slightly different. It's going to be focused on, what is it that you are needing or desiring in that moment in time. So it might be 30% family today, but 70% family tomorrow, or whatever the case is. So that idea of where you can just say, oh, you're going to get this percentage of my day, you're going to get a little bit of, life is going to happen, man. And you can't plan life. Life is just going to do what life does, but you can allow yourself to be present in that experience. I think he found more presence with how he was living. He received what he could receive. And he did seem to be in a better space when we had stopped working together. But I think that the big shift that he had made was he no longer found that he was living in the future and projecting these chaotic scenarios of everything has just gone to shit. And he no longer found himself living in the past to the same degree. He was able to find himself more in where he was in that moment and step back into flow. And if he did, venture onto the other side of the riverbank, he would find his way back into the current and get back into the natural flow of things. And that gave him more capacity and actually allowed him to heal to a degree. So obviously I can't exactly measure that, but he seemed to be better off and more content with himself, which I think everyone looks for in some way, shape, or form.
Well, I think that fulfillment, like just purely by being present, changes as massively. Because like you said, especially in that story, or sorry, that example, when we're so often focused on the future and on that chasm, on that huge gap between where we are and where we want to be, which is like never ending, right? Like I think it was a Alex Hormozy quote, or maybe it was like, maybe he shared the quote, but it was something along the lines of, things that you have today, you once said would make you happy. And you're still saying that there's these things in the future that will make you happy, that will, when this happens, you'll have more time for your family, or when this happens, you'll start to prioritize your health, or these markers. Yes. And then you achieve that. And like, I can't stop now. There's this next thing I need to do. I just need to get that business, hire that next person, or get the business to this next level. I just need to wait till we have, get this deal over the line, or just to this next level, or to this next month, or whatever it is. And it's always that next piece, but there's never that almost like gratitude and presence of, okay, like it's awesome to be pushing for like where we want to go in the future, but like at what point do you enjoy the journey aspect as opposed to just being solely focused on the destination? And so like, I think that's where for a lot of people, if you're not, and this will bring us into this first point, like if you're not in purpose-driven work, like if you're not like conscious of that purpose, that intentional like focus of where you want to go, and you're solely focused on the destination, the journey's pretty shit, right? If you're like, the only reprieve you get is, well, I'll be happy, or I'll be confident, or I'll be fulfilled, or I'll be whatever when I achieve this, as opposed to just enjoying and getting like purpose and fulfillment from the journey process itself, then that's a long ass journey if you make it to the end.
And the thing is, you end up missing the journey. I don't know about you, but I mean, when I can go back to moments in my life where I completely dissociated, there's like massive gaps where you don't necessarily like remember like what you've done, how you've lived, how you've gone through certain things. It just felt like you were just on a fucking, treadmill, just running nowhere. There's no like clear direction. There's no meaning or weight within your steps moving forward. And that's been a practice. That's probably been one of my greatest, I don't want to say flaws, but things that I've had to work on, and I still work on a day-to-day basis. I have to remind myself every day. It's just, your kids are not going to be kids forever. Even though you might be navigating X, Y, and Z, be here, be still, be present. Be in the moment. Take it in. Take in the temper tantrum. Take in the laughs. Take in the spilt milk. Take in the giggles. Take in whatever you need to take in. Take it in, because that's where life is happening. It's not it hasn't happened. It's not going to. It's happening. That's where you need to be. And the more I do that, the less cortisol I find is running through my system, and there's just more ease, and there's more space and capacity, and that ripples into all areas of my life. But when I'm not, and I forget, oh goodness, then I find myself on a different riverbank. I find myself in a different boat. I'm capsized. I'm upside down. I can't lose any more hair at this point, but for everyone
I'm
listening,
in a dried up river well out of the banks and just going like, how did I get here?
But it is that, and then it's like, oh shit, and you feel the misalignment, and then you feel like, fuck, I'm not in line with my values. I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. Like, why the fuck am I doing this? And what I'm doing, I'm also being completely ineffective within this process. Like, I'm not showing up as my best. If I was a world-class athlete and I was competing, which we all are in our own right in different areas of our lives, like, why would I be comfortable competing in this state with this mindset? I need to adjust it to get myself back to where it feels good and it feels congruent with my values, my principles, and move forward from there.
And we're kidding ourselves if we think the people around us do not notice. Like, we can think that we're hiding that, or we're hiding this stress, or we're taking it all on our shoulders on our own. Like, even people that aren't married to such a emotionally in tune, and I guess woman such as yourself, but like, everybody notices. They can tell by the energy that you show up with that something's off. You're stressed, you're not yourself, you're not present, you're all these things. And then it's like night and day when you're in alignment, when you've got that presence, when like shit can hit the fan. And it can be something that maybe, when you're in that stressed out, focusing on everything else but the present moment state, you would have just like instantly at the drop of a pin lost your absolute shit and had a real hard time caging that frustration or that emotion and like handling that from that stoic, controlled masculine that we want to be, versus when you're present, you're just there, and it's like, oh, well, that's not ideal. You crack a joke at it and then you just move on with it, right? It's polar opposites. And so
with you saying that, and I just for the individuals listening, at the end of the day, stress is contagious. So when you're not in alignment, you're in a space of duress and stress. Stress is contagious. It's a proven fact. Like your stress, like there's a smell, and you infect your entire family. You infect your entire family unit. So your kids are going to have higher cortisol levels. Your partner is going to have higher cortisol levels. Everyone's going to be on overdrive because you, as the masculine, set the fucking tone for your home and your life. And if you are, lying down half, I don't know, just like fucking being complacent, and you're like, woe is me, and stuck in your victim space, or you're angry and frustrated and you're fighting against life and you're angry at yourself and everyone else, that is going to infect everyone else. So then what do you think your household is going to look and feel like? Is it going to be accommodating and loving and restorative and a nice, warm, fuzzy place for you to lay your head? No, it's not. You're going to have kids that are acting up, and they don't know why they're acting up. They just feel all these weird feelings and they feel heightened, and it's not a natural state. And your wife is going to be, or your partner is going to be in a position where they're like, well, maybe a bit more snappy, or they're just going to be like, let's give this person some space. Yep. And it's like, well, there's this mood, and there's this like overall state, like this dark cloud of despair around you. How, like, in that state, going into like diving into the hermetic principles that Josh touches on, like, you're not going to attract anything exciting and joyful from that state. You're going to be doing the opposite, because like is going to attract like.
Yeah. And I had a client, when he first realized that, was like pissed off. He's like, why is it fucking on me? Tell them to sort their own mood out. Like he was like almost shunned that responsibility and that control. It was like, fuck, why is it my problem that she's a moody bitch? Why is it my problem that the kids are acting up and they're just little shits and they just do this? Like, you're the masculine, like you said, like you are the rock. If you're stable and strong, everybody's standing on even ground, everybody is safe, everybody's happy, everybody's in harmony. If you are crumbling and you're like a volcano going off, everybody's on edge. And so no wonder you're always arguing, the kids are acting up, you never get laid. Like, well, do it in the mirror. Number one.
Start there. Start there. And here's the thing, it's not about being dissociated. It's just it's about being present and being non-reactive. You're responding. Yes, sometimes things are going to happen and you're going to be triggered. It's natural. Like if your kid's been screaming in your ear for like half an hour and you haven't slept and you maybe haven't had your third cup of coffee. By the way, this is where you need to sell everyone on Primal and say, don't do coffee, do Primal.
Yeah,
Primal Energies. Brain juice. Where you can just you're going to find yourself in those situations, and that's where all these practices come in. That's when it counts, when you're actually in the chaos. And it's like, I don't feel like doing this. Already, you're saying feel. It's got nothing to do with your mindset. You don't feel like doing it. It's your feelings, it's emotions. Okay. Is my kid trying to attack me and like hurt me? Do they have a malicious intent? No. Is my wife trying to berate me? No, she's not. She's maybe just experiencing some discomfort and projecting it onto me. What can I do to best facilitate this? Act like a child and throw a temper tantrum and blame and shout and scream and stomp my feet? Or do I grow up, take a deep breath or two or three, maybe step out of the space if it's safe to do so, because you need to obviously watch your kid. So be a good parent first, guys, and breathe. Come back in. Take a second. Recognize, okay, like no one's trying to take,
it's not personal.
hurt you. It's not, it really isn't personal. And you're not the victim here, but you have the opportunity to lead. You have the opportunity to be still. You have the opportunity to listen and to be that space of safety. And when you make that energetic and state flip or switch, you'll notice that whatever mood and whatever was happening, it dies down really fucking fast versus perpetuate and multiply and become this exponential, chaotic situation. That's the invitation here. It's to find that space. And that's easier said than done. Because let's add in lack of sleep and financial stress and duress. Or maybe you're like, oh shit, I need to pay someone because they're working in my business and I haven't had this in. Whatever your story is, that's great. But it still does not give you the right, and this is being very honest, to treat people like shit because you feel like shit, or to project your shit onto other people. Own your shit, deal with it, and move on.
That ownership and discipline is a huge piece as well.
Yes.
Like, just because you feel something doesn't mean you need to act on it. But I think like coming back to what we said before about that presence, if you've got that, and obviously as a parent, when you're stressed, when you're sleep deprived, when you've got a lot of those factors which aren't always, the most in our control, as much as we would like them to be, there's always shit outside that. But for the most part, if you're present in that moment, you have a much greater bandwidth, a much greater time to go from being present and neutral to going to that extreme of frustration and fuck this kid, I'm about to kick it out the window if it doesn't shut up, right? Whereas if you're always stressed, thinking about work, thinking about the future, thinking about all that other stuff that isn't right there, then that happens in an instant. And your chance of catching yourself before that escalates and goes down that path, almost impossible. Extremely difficult to catch yourself in that freaking moment, right? Takes practice, and surely you can do it, but pre-handle the stuff that put you in that slightly irritable or on edge state at the start and make life easy for yourself.
Exactly. So if you were to now break this down and just to a practice and a place to start, so I think whoever's been listening maybe has a clear understanding of, well, here's a couple of situations or spaces where this would be more apparent, or these type of things would arise. So someone starting from scratch and be like, okay, like how do I create more alignment, find more flow, cultivate that sense of presence from a practical standpoint? Just maybe 2 or 3 basic practices that's maybe in a sequence that they can use to reflect on a day-to-day basis moving forward, and using this as a baseline for how they start their day and how they move throughout their day, so they can have more of the uptime in the state of presence and responding, taking responsibility versus reacting and running in the future or running in the past.
I think a good place to start is, like, first of all, look in your current life. Where do you find those places of alignment, of flow? Like, what segments of your day or your week do you find where you're just naturally present in that flow? Time seems to go by like that, and there's nothing that could distract you from what you're doing, right? You're just in that zone, as people say. It might be hobby related, if you're a surfer or you skate or you snowboard or you do things like that that require balance, that require like that movement of your body, forces you to be responsive and present in what you're doing. Other areas as well, look for evidence. I think that's a good place to start for most people, because if there's already something in your life, it's going to give you clues, because then you can look at what element of that is like, do you find aligning? If it's ideally to do with your purpose or your work or something that you do on a more regular basis, not that's just solely enjoyment focused, but that can be a good place to start to bring that presence. Another one as well is just look at why we're not so present. Being distracted all the time, right? Functions like do not disturb, airplane mode, turning notifications off on your screen and things like that whilst you are doing work or you are sitting down to do some of this reflection can be massively beneficial, so that you're not training that little monkey brain to expect dopamine every 30 seconds because you can't focus on what you're doing. That presence, whether you're with your kids or you're working or you're at the gym or whatever you're doing, is going to come down almost to that attention span as well. And so like if we've trained ourselves to expect dopamine from food, from porn, from social media, from notifications, almost like like on the regular, it makes it real hard. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm a big advocate for meditation, for that discipline of being able to refocus. Like meditation isn't the practice of kind of silencing your mind. It's acknowledging the distraction, then back to center. Refocus, refocus, refocus. In the same way that you strengthen your muscles at the gym, you strengthen your mind by being able to refocus. Because we know the people that are most successful in anything are the ones that can stay the most focused longer than anybody else. And so if you can hold that focus, no matter who you're with or what you're doing, the chance of success in that domain drastically increases. And then so another piece, this is one of Joe Dispenza's cues on reflection at the end of the day, is just simply, where did you go unconscious? And by unconscious, he means where did you revert to autopilot behaviors? That autopilot behavior might be checking your phone at the dinner table. It might be acting out of emotion rather than taking that breath, or allowing the day to get away from you rather than being present and intentional with your focus, with your energy, with your efforts. And then so by acknowledging where you went unconscious, your cue for the next day is in this time bracket, in this environment, in this setting. I'm now going to bring that new level of consciousness to rewire my brain to this behavior that I want, so that I'm more present at the dinner table, so that I'm more focused at work, in communication, so that I can do these things to a higher level, to my best standard. And then we do the same process. Where did I go unconscious today? And then the aim there is constantly raising the standard of that autopilot behavior, so that we're not just raising the ceiling for our potential and our success and all these things, but we're raising the floor as well. So you get to a point of, even on a day of complete autopilot, I still didn't eat like shit. I still didn't go on a bender. I still didn't spend our life savings. I still didn't react emotionally and act out and do all these things. I was still able to eat nutritious foods and have like relatively health and present focused or intentional habits and things like that. And then it's just that constant progression.
I think that's it in a nutshell. What I loved about what you said there was just it really is about raising that baseline. And that baseline is essentially the habits that you install through your practices. Because when you do go into autopilot, it's your habits that take flight. Yeah, that's the thing that keeps you going. That's the thing that allows things to move. And it just takes 21 days to do that. 21 days and you can rewire your entire system and get yourself moving in the best ways possible. Yeah, thank you for that insight, man. That was great.
I hope that's helpful. Most of all, I hope that's actionable for people as well. I don't want this to just be like mindset motivation that you just get off on, like, oh yeah, that makes sense, that's real good, oh, I've got my fix for today, and then tune in tomorrow. But like something that you can actually go and do today or tonight that's going to shift that pattern of behavior, that autopilot mode that you've been in?
And just here's a question that I ask everyone, and just to add to that, we touched on, like creating fulfillment and meaning with everything that you're busy doing. The question that we don't ask ourselves enough is, well, what is my why? Why does this mean something to me? Why is this important to me? And use that as your frame as you're moving through these different practices. Like, why am I working out? Because I want to love myself. I want to look and feel at my best, because when I am that, I get to share that and model that to my kids or to my partner. And I want that. I want that experience. Why do I want to interact with kindness and compassion? Well, because that's what I want. That's how I would treat myself. I want to do that with other people. So get that why as your golden light or your North Star that you get to focus on. Why is this important to me? Why is this something that I want to pursue and engage in this way? And you'll find more meaning with that. And yes, we can talk about understand your values. That just creates a framework for you. So values are always, it's a really good baseline with everything that we do here, in terms of mental, emotional, physical fitness, mental fitness. But the practice that you've just shared there, Harry, I think that as a baseline is absolutely incredible. Alongside understanding those things that you're doing need to also align with things that mean something to you, or at least start to find the meaning within that. Otherwise, you're not going to want to do it and pursue it.
Yeah. And then that way as well, once you're not so motivated to do it, you have that deeper reason why, because it's super easy to justify why we shouldn't do something. Or I'm doing it because the guys on the podcast said, or because this person on the internet said so, or because my wife said so, or because someone else says I should, but you don't really care about. But if you know why you're doing it, like
Yes.
on that deeper level, then that can be the difference between being able to override that, but I don't feel like it today. And
motivation. Yeah, the lack of motivation. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, you're the one that said you wanted this. This is like, no one's going to force you to do it. But you got to live with the fact if you don't. Right.
Exactly that.
So wrap it up there. I hope that's been helpful for you guys. As a bit of a closer, guys, we are kicking off and boosting our community presence at the moment. So for the guys that want to create more in their business, in their income, and the level of impact that they have, not just in their own community, but their life and everyone that they come into contact with, without sacrificing their sanity and their fulfillment along that way. For guys that want to be able to grind less, build a body, a level of health that enables them to have that level of fulfillment and that impact as well, so that you can operate at your peak in your performance. And guys that just want to live deeper, like deeper connections with themselves, with those around them, both family, friends, colleagues, business partners, all that stuff. We've built a community on School. We've got varying levels in there of how you can get access to all the resources that we've built in there, that we've helped thousands of guys to achieve that and more. If you want access to that, the link is going to be in the show notes. You can check out that. There's a few free resources and workshops in there to just get a taste. And if that's your vibe, either reach out to us, or in that will be the link for more info. But otherwise, we will see you there, and I'll see you in the next episode.